There's a silent moment no one talks about. That moment when your heart starts feeling safe, when you let your guard down, when your laughter becomes unfiltered and your touch becomes gentle, loving, real. You think it's the beginning, but to him, something changes. You sense it before he says it. You sense it before he even knows it himself. He pulls away slowly, subtly, but you feel the shift like a knife between your ribs. You lie awake, staring at your phone, reading over your last message, wondering if it was too long, too honest, too raw, wondering if your vulnerability became your crime. You replay his eyes when he looked at you the last time. They were warm, weren't they? Or was that just your hope painting over the truth? You keep thinking, why does this happen every time? Why does he lose interest when I finally give him my heart? No one ever taught you that some men chase mystery because they fear the gravity of intimacy. That some men mistake your attachment for their own emotional imprisonment. That some men never wanted to be seen that deeply in the first place. This isn't about blame. This isn't about playing games to keep him hooked. This is about understanding the invisible truths running beneath his silence so you can decide what your love is truly worth. Because your heart is not a trick to keep his attention. Your attachment is not weakness. And his distance is not a reflection of your value. If you felt this sudden loss of warmth, this script will open your eyes. Watch till the end, subscribe. And if you want to reclaim your emotional power without shutting down your beautiful, loving heart, there's a moment when everything shifts. You feel it before you see it, before he speaks fewer words, before his touch becomes absent even as his hand rests on yours. It's the moment your heart leans in fully, the moment you finally allow yourself to feel safe in his presence, to believe his intentions, to relax your guarded breath and whisper silently, maybe this is real. But in that exact moment, something happens within him. A silent panic flickers beneath his chest, not because you did something wrong, not because your love is too much, but because your presence just became real, and real is a place he never prepared to visit. He wanted warmth, closeness, the electric connection, the feeling of being desired, of being important in your life. But now, as your heart begins to anchor itself to him, his freedom feels threatened in a way he cannot explain. You see, your emotional attachment is not chains. But to him, it feels like drowning in a depth he never intended to swim in. He didn't plan to see himself in your eyes, to see a future he doesn't feel ready to hold. Your attachment becomes a mirror that shows him a life beyond fleeting desire, a life that demands vulnerability, courage, and devotion. And that mirror terrifies him. So his mind builds quiet walls. He convinces himself that your love is heavy, your presence is demanding, your needs are suffocating. He twists reality to match the fear growing inside him. He pulls away slowly, subtly, making you question your worth with every unfinished sentence and every delayed response. Not because you are too much, but because he feels too small to hold what you bring. Here is the truth you never deserved to learn through heartbreak. Your attachment is not a trap. His fear is not your responsibility to fix. Some men will always run when love stops being a game and starts becoming a home. They don't run from you. They run from the parts of themselves that breathe underwater. But love, real love, was always meant to drown the fears that keep us shallow. So let him go if he pulls away. You were never here to keep a man afloat who refuses to swim towards you. There comes a time when your love stops being something he enjoys and starts becoming something he sees himself in. At first, he loves the way you look at him, the way your eyes soften when he speaks, the way your touch feels like acceptance without questions, the way your presence tells him without words, you are enough for me. But then something shifts. Your love becomes a mirror that reflects the parts of him he's been avoiding, the parts he keeps hidden beneath ambition, charm, and fleeting moments of passion. Suddenly, he sees his fears in your devotion. He sees his unmade choices in your unwavering eyes. He sees the life he could build and the man he is too afraid to become to build it. He feels exposed in your presence, not because you judge him, but because your loyalty and depth reveal how unprepared he is to hold something real. Your love demands nothing, yet it awakens everything buried within him. It forces him to ask questions he's spent years avoiding. Who am I when someone believes in me this deeply? Why does this love feel heavier than lust, harder than conquest, deeper than comfort? He realizes your love is not a fleeting emotion. It's a force, an unspoken call to rise, to grow, to step into the man he never thought he could be. But growth terrifies those who have built their lives around comfort. And loving you is not comfortable. It is raw. It is honest. It is a choice to show up with courage every day. So he turns away from the mirror, not because it lies, but because it tells him a truth he isn't ready to live out loud. He pulls back, avoids depth, finds reasons to argue, creates silence where there was warmth. Anything to escape the reflection of himself he saw in your eyes. You must remember this. His inability to hold your love says nothing about your worth. Your love is not too deep. He is just unwilling to drown in anything that demands his full becoming. Never shrink your love to keep a man comfortable with his smallness. One day, someone will look into your eyes and see not a mirror, but a home. You might think he pulls away because he stops caring. But the truth is far more silent, far more human. He doesn't distance himself because your love has lost its glow. He distances himself because he feels himself disappearing within it. When a man fears losing himself, it is not because you have demanded too much. It is because he has never learned how to give without losing pieces of who he is. He feels your love wrapping around his edges, softening the roughness he thinks he needs to survive. He feels your understanding breaking down his walls, exposing wounds he has hidden from his own reflection. He feels your dreams merging with his, and suddenly he wonders if he will ever stand alone again. In his mind, love becomes a choice between freedom and devotion, between his old life and this new gravity he feels when he is near you. He fears waking up one day and realizing he no longer knows where he ends and you begin. And for a man who has spent his life defining himself by control his career, his space, his routines, the thought of surrendering to something this consuming terrifies him. So he builds quiet barriers. He tells himself he needs space. He buries himself in work. He ignores your messages longer than usual. He becomes busy with things that once mattered far less than you. All of it is his silent way of saying, I need to feel like I still exist without you. But you must understand this. His fear of losing himself in your love has nothing to do with your depth, your truth, or your presence. It is his lifelong struggle to hold love without feeling owned by it. His inability to stand in intimacy without feeling swallowed by its expectations. Your task is not to dim your light, to keep him from feeling overwhelmed. Your task is to stand rooted in yourself so firmly that his fear does not become your shame. If he walks away to keep his illusion of freedom alive, let him. Real love is never about losing yourself. It is about finding someone who makes you more of who you already are. There comes a moment when he begins to feel the silent weight of your expectations pressing against his chest. You might think you're simply loving him deeply, hoping for closeness, dreaming of a future with the one who makes your soul feel less alone. But in his world, those expectations turn into invisible chains that bind his freedom to your hopes. He starts to feel like every word you say carries a silent question he doesn't know how to answer. Like every small disappointment in your eyes is a judgment on his worth as a man. He senses your unspoken prayers that he will choose you fully, that he will finally make you his forever. And though your heart only wants certainty and security, he feels those desires like a burden he cannot bear. Because when a man is not ready to become the person your expectations need him to be, he will interpret love as pressure. He will read your longing as demand. Your vulnerability will feel like a responsibility he never agreed to carry. So he distances himself, not because your love is flawed, but because he knows he cannot become who you seek without losing who he thinks he is. This is the tragedy of it all. You never asked him to sacrifice himself. You only wanted him to stand by your side with honesty and presence. But his fear twists your needs into obligations. His fear turns your openness into a threat to his peace. And instead of growing alongside you, he retreats into the safety of his solitude, where no one asks him to become more than what he is today. You must remember, it is not your job to shrink your dreams so he feels safe staying small. It is not your job to apologize for wanting a love that doesn't flicker with the winds of his insecurities. If he feels your expectations as a weight rather than a privilege, let him walk away. Because the right man will never see your truth as pressure. He will see it as an invitation to rise into the highest, deepest version of himself. And he will choose to stand there with you. You may think he distances himself because he doesn't care enough, but often it's because he cares in a way he cannot control. Deep down, he senses that your presence stirs something in him that makes him feel unsteady. It's a feeling he isn't used to, a feeling that strips away the armor he wears for the world. He has spent his life building walls of logic, ambition, and emotional distance to keep his heart safe. When you come close with your quiet warmth, your fierce honesty, your unwavering love, it rattles those walls. Suddenly, he cannot predict how he will feel. Suddenly, he cannot measure or contain what is happening inside him. And for a man who fears vulnerability more than loneliness, that is a terrifying loss of control. He begins to feel like he is no longer steering the course of his life. Your presence becomes a force that pulls him deeper into himself, forcing him to face the shadows he has ignored for years. And rather than surrendering to the unknown beauty of that journey, he fights it. He fights it by pulling away, by finding reasons to doubt you, by distracting himself with meaningless pursuits that numb the longing he feels. Because in his mind, if he surrenders to your love, he loses his independence. If he lets you see the unhealed parts of him, he loses his power. And if he admits that he wants you beyond logic or explanation, he loses the story he tells himself about who he is and who he is allowed to become. But here is the truth: love was never meant to be controlled. Love was meant to undo us in the best possible way, to break open the cages we live in, to strip away our false pride and reveal the quiet, trembling soul that wants nothing more than to be held and chosen just as it is. If he fears losing control with you, it only means your love touches a part of him he has buried for too long. It is not your job to convince him to embrace it. It is only your job to stand rooted in your worth, knowing that the man who is ready will not see your love as a threat. He will see it as the freedom he has been searching for all along. There comes a moment after he walks away, after his heart retreats into its old fortress, when silence becomes his only companion. In that silence, he feels relief at first. Relief that he no longer has to answer your gentle questions, no longer has to feel exposed under the gaze that saw through him. But as days pass, relief turns into emptiness, because he realizes the silence does not protect him, it imprisons him. At first, he distracts himself with work, people, fleeting pleasures that mean nothing. But late at night, when he is alone with his thoughts, your memory returns uninvited. He remembers how your voice softened his anger. He remembers how your presence made him feel safe in a way that did not weaken him, but strengthened him. And with each memory, he feels something tightening inside, a truth he never wanted to admit, that in pushing you away, he pushed away the only chance he had to feel truly alive. This silent regret does not come with tears or pleas. It comes with an H that sits deep in his chest, an H that says he had something rare in his hands, and he let it slip because he could not bear to be vulnerable. He will not tell anyone about this regret. He will walk through life appearing confident, appearing strong, appearing busy with a purpose. But inside, there will always be a room where your presence still lives. A room he visits when his world feels too cold, even if only in his mind. And you, on your side of this broken bridge, you may never hear this truth from him. You may only hear his silence and think it means indifference. But in reality, it means he knows he lost something sacred, and he cannot undo that loss without undoing the man he has always been. Know this, his silent regret is not your burden to carry. It is his silent proof that your love was never worthless, that your presence was never forgettable, that you, in your fierce, honest, unwavering love, were the moment his life offered him a doorway out of emptiness, a doorway he chose not to walk through.